There we go.
Classic.
If you have a disability that limits major life activities with significant medical need, paid family leave. If your loved one's in the hospital without a long time off, could you be by their side at all without paid family leave? For the moms, for the dads, for the kids and their families. For the singles trying to make ends meet. For all of us who have so much to bear, who need some tender love and care, with you and me together, we'll advocate for our needs, and that's why we sing paid family leave. This should be a breeze. We're not gonna leave until we get what we need. We're blazing a trail where all can feel well, where people can have security economically and socially. Yeah, 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 economically and socially. Yeah, yeah. Talking to lawmakers and being change makers, we need their support to help build rapport with the bicameral government. Our bill is bipartisan. Through committee and on the floor, the bill gets votes. For the moms, for the dads, for the kids and the families, for the singles trying to make ends meet. For all of us who have so much to bear, need some tender love and care, with you and me together, we'll advocate for our needs, and that's why we sing paid family leave. This should be a breeze. We're not gonna leave until we get what we need. We're blazing a trail where all can feel well, where people can have security economically and socially. Yeah, 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 economically and socially. Yeah. If this bill gets signed into law, will we reflect on all we were taught, on how to advocate and legislate? Our friends will help us celebrate. We'll thank all those who inspired us along the way, who chose to share our stories and be so brave. We'll continue celebrating that we got paid family leave. This should be a breeze. We're not gonna leave until we get what we need. We're blazing a trail where all can feel well, where people can have security economically and socially. Yeah, yeah, economically and socially. Yeah, economically and socially a trail.
Thank you, Christian.
Thank
That was awesome. I hope everybody's clapping. People are saying that it was beautiful. And now I want to turn it
Oh,
over
thank you so much.
to Dr. Josie Badger to do a welcome and overview.
thank you guys. Sorry for my tech issues earlier. It's too many YouTube things. Folks, thank you so very much for being with us today. I am so excited to be here. Both just sharing with you our excitement about Family Care Act, but also as a chance to talk about what this bill really means to Pennsylvania, to the constituents of various legislators, all legislators across the state. And so it is my honor to be the Family Care Coalition chair, and to be able to share this time with you. So I'm going to turn it back over to Everett to start the rest of the party off. So
Yeah, and we're gonna kick it off with Representative Dan Miller, who is the sponsor of House Bill 181. And Rep Miller is the son of immigrant parents who and grew up facing financial challenges, but developed a deep appreciation for America's opportunities. After serving in the Army National Guard and AmeriCorps, he pursued education and law, eventually becoming a public defender and county solicitor. Known for his community involvement, including volunteering as a firefighter and serving on various local boards, Rep Miller was elected to the House of Representatives in 2013 and has since been recognized for his advocacy, particularly for people with disabilities, receiving numerous awards across his time. So, welcome, Representative Miller. We're so happy to have you here today to pump us
Thank
up.
you. Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. And thanks for trying to make it a shorter intro. Good effort. Hey, listen, just good to see everybody. Thank you for spending time. I know everybody has a lot to do and life is challenging, right? So we have to, kind of choose where we can stop in and where we can't. So I appreciate that you stopped here. And I also thank Christian for a song. So that sounded great. Love what you were capturing. Look, obviously, I've been the lead sponsor of the Family Care Act for, I think it's 3 terms. So we have continuously been trying to build this bipartisan coalition, right? And that's a good thing. That's what we need, especially in Pennsylvania. You can't pass much of value if you can't get something through what is a Democratic House now and what is a Republican Senate. But look, as far as what this does, this is a game-changing opportunity here, right? And to be honest, it's one of those bills that I kind of put into the category that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And the challenge that we have in Pennsylvania is that we usually wait too long to decide to jump in and get something done. And one of the things that, I also kind of say is we generally only lead the nation in never leading the nation. So look, a bunch of our surrounding states have already shown us how we can get this done. So the Family Care Act is up and operational basically all through sort of our northern border, our eastern border, our southern border. I'm not going to talk about our western border, okay? But we've seen it working, we've seen it making a difference, and we see the type of game-changing positive impact it can have on individuals and families and across the board. Look, I appreciate Everett saying a couple things. Like many of you, especially of my age with it, I grew up without health care entirely, right? Some of this stuff here is kind of, thankfully, we've made some progress in this front. The FMLA was a good step forward, 25 plus years ago or so. But even when we had the FMLA, as much as it's nice to have the FMLA, if you can't afford to take the time off, it doesn't matter that you can take time off. And that's what it came down to. We've actually had this massive gaping donut hole for years and decades here for so many people, millions of people here in Pennsylvania, who are like, look, that's great that FMLA exists, but if I can't afford to take it, then it doesn't exist for me. And so finally, through a coalition, and I don't want to act like this is the first attempt, but we have been able to at least put pen to paper and to offer a successful model that has some degree of adaptation, depending on the state that you're in, but has the chance of being able to navigate what really is the only sort of divided legislature in the country, right? Because don't forget, like I said, we have to pass a bill that will get through the House and get through the Senate under 2 different parties. Thankfully, over the years that we've been working on the Family Care Act, it has always had a degree of bipartisan support. We can never lose it. If there's any chance of us getting it done this term in particular, we can never lose the bipartisan support that we have. We have to build it. It's the only way, right? So that's the goal that we have. That's the direction we need to be in. The bill isn't everything to everybody. You could argue a point. There's no doubt about it. I've written other bills that would have taken perhaps things a little different way. But it's a chance to build off what has worked and helped in other places. And keep in mind, this is the good thing about it too. We are lifting up so many workers, not only so many workers, but to be honest with you, but so many businesses actually too, who can benefit from having this program because it equalizes things across the board, especially for the small to mid-sized businesses. Some of them want to offer benefits, but struggle to do so, especially if some of their competitors do not. By pulling so many in, and not just full-time, but a good chunk of our part-time as well, it gives an opportunity here for both the businesses and the workers here in Pennsylvania to move forward together. And that's why I think this is such a good bill. In many other states, the Chamber of Commerce has actually supported the bill, not so close here yet. And obviously the state AFL-CIO has always supported this effort and has supported the effort in every state, right? So this is what we need to do. Look, like I told you, for my generation, my mom struggled to do many things. My mom neglected her own health at the expense of me and my sister. And so many people are still in that scenario today where they have to make tough choices and they have to miss things that in reality no one should ever miss. At the end of the day, in the final analysis, there's only going to be those handful of moments that each of us in our shared humanity are going to be like, I needed to be there for my loved one. And the question is, were you able to be there? And here in Pennsylvania right now, for too many workers, the answer to that all too often is no. A state as great and as blessed as ours should be doing much better than that. And we should be moving forward and getting on the front of the issue rather than the back end. Paid leave is going to happen. It's going to happen not just in Pennsylvania. It's going to happen in every state. It's going to be a reality for our country. In the meantime, because of some people not embracing the reality of that human need, too many people miss things they should not miss. We have a chance, not in this term, working with Senate friends and in a bipartisan coalition to get this bill done. It's been one of my great honors to help author a bill that can do so much good. But in order for that to happen, we have to work together to bring that bipartisan coalition, to be sure that Democrats and Republicans in both the House and the Senate see their way through to lift this up and to make a difference in working Pennsylvanians across the state. I'm excited. I'm excited because we are making progress. We are through committee. We are taking a look at how we can do this on the floor. I'm trying to be optimistic for our good friends in the Senate to advance a companion bipartisan bill there too. This is a better term of progress than I've ever been in. So we're getting closer. We need your help to keep that pressure up. I would urge all of you, no matter where you are in the state, contact your state rep and your state senator. Democrat doesn't matter, Republican doesn't matter. If they're not already on the Family Care Act, get them on it. If they are on the Family Care Act, tell them thank you, okay? And tell them we need that vote to occur in the House and the Senate. Thank you for making the time. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I know it's challenging to fit things in during a work day. Thank you for joining us. I'm not going to stop fighting for this bill. I know our coalition is not going to stop fighting for this bill. And with everybody's help, we can get it done. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rep Miller. Thank you so much. And next, I'm excited to introduce Rebecca McTaggart. Rebecca McTaggart is the Vice President and Chapter Advocacy Coordinator of the United Spinal Association's Pittsburgh chapter, which supports, empower, and provides resources for wheelchair users throughout Western Pennsylvania. In 2016, she left her job to provide care support for her son, who sustained a spinal cord injury, and continues to advocate for caregivers and individuals who support them. And she's going to talk today about how it's never just the accident. So welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you
Thank
so
for being here
much.
today.
So I'm going to go back a little bit further than 2016. 2013, my daughter had complications with an appendectomy and had to spend a month out of school with a PICC line. And we didn't have anybody else. I was working at the time, and I had to take that month off from work. We are the time lower middle class family. That's not good for finances, but there was no other choice for us. And then in 2016, she was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. In that same year, as Everett said, my son sustained, and he was 15 at the time, a spinal cord injury. And while my husband drove from Washington to Delaware, probably breaking a lot of speed limit rules, my son was life-flighted to a children's hospital in Delaware, where he stayed in ICU for 2 weeks. It became quite apparent that, my husband had to return to Pittsburgh to work, and get back into the swing of things, while also looking for a rehab for my son, while I tried to take care of my son in the hospital and my daughter. And she also spent her 12th birthday in a hospital waiting room. Once my son was out of the woods, and we were able to return him back to Pittsburgh, they flew him back to Pittsburgh on a medical airline. And he decided that while he was participating in inpatient rehab, he wanted to stay in school. I tried to get him to take a year off so he could focus on rehab, and he insisted he was going to graduate with his class. So I quit my job, and I spent my days with him at the hospital in Pittsburgh. And while he was on breaks from PT and OT, we worked on his schoolwork. He couldn't write. He couldn't really move his arms at the time. So I did all of his writing for him, worked on his, read the books for him and whatnot. And as soon as 2:30 hit, I had to travel from Pittsburgh back to Washington to make sure that I was home for my daughter, so she would feel like she wasn't being left out and not cared for. And due to her anxiety, we wanted to also ensure that she was able to continue to participate in her extracurricular activities like Girl Scouts and horseback riding. And if you know anything about horseback riding, it is not cheap. So when I was with my daughter, my husband after work would go to the hospital and spend the night with him. And on the weekends, we would switch. He'd come home with Anna, and I would be staying at the hospital with Jackson. So when you think about it, you're talking about, loss of the financials from my job that we had, gas money traveling back and forth to the hospital and to, home. We had to redo our bathroom so Jackson could get in it. We had to add 2 stair lifts so Jackson could get into the house and up to his bedroom. We had to buy a van, an accessible van, which is very, very expensive. So, the Family Care Act, having some paid medical leave would have been absolutely beneficial for us as a family. It would have helped cover some of those costs that are associated with all the things that we had to do to successfully care for our children. We are still in a tremendous amount of debt. We are still okay financially, but it was a strain and it continues to be a strain financially. And not many families are as lucky as we are to have been able to live like we're used to and live comfortably in our home and whatnot. So overall, this act could improve the quality of life for caregivers and care recipients, ensuring that families have the much needed support and resources at the times where they are most vulnerable. So, keep the good fight going. And thank you for letting me speak today.
And thank you for being here. Next, thank you for being here and sharing your story. But next, we have you get a 2-for-1 special on this one. We have Sandra Carroll and Arnell Floria. Sandra has a bachelor's degree in organizational behavior and had a career in corporate recruiting and career counseling before becoming a home educator to her 4 special needs children, now age 36, 30, and 21, all of whom are now in college. Sandra currently works as a power coach, mentoring people with disabilities in the state of Pennsylvania at Self Advocates United as one. And Arnell has been in the IT profession for over 30 years across a wide variety of industries, most currently as a technical lead at Westchester University. He has a bachelor's degree in business and economics and is a Microsoft certified systems engineer. He's an autistic self-advocate and a proud member and panelist for the A-Day Drexel Autism Institute's Fathers of Children with Autism Support Group. He most recently spoke at the Pennsylvania Department of Education annual conference regarding special education. So welcome, Sandra and Arnell, to our party today.
Thank you, Everett. Can y'all hear me okay?
Thank you.
Can you hear me? Somebody
Yes.
say you can hear me. All right, thank you, dear.
Yes.
We can hear you.
All right, great. All right. I want to thank you all for taking time out of your busy days to listen to our stories. 30 years ago, my husband and I were living the American dream in Los Angeles, in one of the most liberal states in the country. FMLA had recently become law, the Family Medical Leave Act, although I doubted I would ever need it. I was young. I'd been married for just 4 years. My husband and I had met at college and finished our bachelor's degrees within 6 months of each other. We were both working full time and had been trying to start our family for a couple of years. We were stable, we were privileged, and we were dual income and had 6 months of savings in case of an emergency. And I bring all of this up because I think sometimes we think that our government is so divided that there are few issues that we really can come together on and agree on. And I just want to say we were sort of, the poster children for people who were living the dream and had maybe done everything quote right. A lot of times we blame people for the situations that we end up in, but if it could happen to us, it could happen to anybody. As background real quick, my husband's parents were low-income immigrants who had fought for every nickel and dime. My dad and mom were several generations removed from their immigrant ancestors, but both came from very non-affluent families, and they struggled and worked hard to achieve higher education. My husband's parents grew up Catholic. My own family are conservative Christians. And as children, we both had substantial affluence that, was the benefit of our parents' hard work. Compared to how they grew up, it was never a question. It was understood that we would work hard in high school and go to college, and that would be our ticket to a comfortable life. And then my first pregnancy ended in miscarriage, and my second pregnancy was just miserable. but full term, and we had private, expensive health insurance, and I gave birth in a high quality private hospital. And so despite for being set up for every kind of success, instead I contracted an acute infection at the hands of my care team in the hospital. I was unable to care for my baby. I could barely lift my head. My husband took off work and applied for the family medical leave. And then I was supremely grateful that it existed, because this was definitely not what we were expecting. The law was fresh, and his employer found a loophole that wasn't necessarily legal, but they had the power because the law had no teeth. Since your employer had the control to decide whether or not they would grant it to you or not, right or wrong. I would have been happy to have had that unpaid leave at that time, but we couldn't even get that. So as my husband struggled to find a new job while taking care of a sick wife and a sick newborn, we went through our savings and then some. Fortunately, we had good credit at that time, and we were able to also go into 6 months of debt once we ran out of cash flow. Ultimately, we had to declare bankruptcy, which started a downward spiral from which we've never really recovered truly. Since my husband had lost his job, I also lost my health insurance, which I really needed, and my baby needed desperately to recover and get well at that time. That led to a decades-long unemployment for me, as I was not only disabled, but I didn't have enough Social Security quarters earned in order to be eligible for short-term or long-term disability payments. Asking your employer to decide whether or not you deserve unpaid or paid leave is, I think, an inherent conflict of interest. It's like asking the fox to guard the hen house. I had had every opportunity for success to be an affluent taxpayer adding into the system, for which I could not collect or continue to contribute. I think it's time to take away control from the employer and leave it up to my doctor to decide if I'm disabled enough for paid family leave. And the the Pennsylvania paid family leave, the Family Care Act bill, is a self-funded program that would allow us to avoid the devastation that extended unemployment caused to our family. A few months of paid family leave would have cost the government and our family so much less than a lifetime of financial instability. So for me, it's a program that not only makes sense, but it makes dollars. And I appreciate you listening to our story, and I'm going to let my husband share his perspective.
Yeah, and I was thinking that, you know, I when it was a given that as a child of immigrants, I was going to go to school, I was going to graduate from college, and I was going to start a career, and I did all that, and I thought that I was on my way, that life, I was finally living the dream. But you never know what will happen in life. Like my wife said, she got sick. I had to take time off, and I burned through all of my vacation and sick time and savings, and started having to borrow so I could stay home. That placed a severe financial burden on us. And by the time I was ready to go back to work, the financial load was just so heavy we could sustain, and we went through bankruptcy. And to this day, we still feel the effects reverberating. I just hope that by passing this act, that we'll be able to spare other families while having to go through this awful experience that my wife and I went through. Thank you.
And thank you both for sharing today. Thank you for sharing that. And now we're going to turn our focus to the impact of family leave on parents and babies. And to do this, I'm going to have Josie pull up a video that was shot with Dr. Amaka Unamane, who is a board certified pediatrician dedicated to promoting breastfeeding equity and belonging, receiving grants to improve breastfeeding rates in marginalized communities. She is actively involved in various organizations such as the PAAAP and the Mid-Atlantic Mother's Milk Bank, advocating for breastfeeding policy reform and authoring a children's book titled Zora's Quest Mommy's Milk Rocks. Her advocacy work has gained recognition on numerous media platforms, and she engages in public speaking engagements and read alouds of her book to empower and educate children. So here is the video, hopefully.
Hello. I'd really like to start by saying, this my own personal lived experiences and my story and why this is even more important to me, right? I was that intern, June 2011. I'd found out on match day of the same year that I'd gotten into my first choice hospital residency program in pediatrics. For those of us that don't know what match day is, it's the day when the National Residency Matching Program releases results to applicants seeking residency in a specialty of their choice in the US. I started residency 4 months pregnant with a due date of November 17. Well, Amara showed up 5 days late and 2 days prior to Thanksgiving Day after what seemed like eternal labor, right? Interestingly, like I had mentioned earlier, I just started residency, and so I hadn't accumulated those hours or the necessary things required to qualify for paid leave or leave, period. Thankfully, my residency coordinator was able to work out some details with me that allowed me to take a few weeks off. Now, I can't overemphasize the importance of having that time to not only bond with my child. I should mention at this point that for most of the duration of my pregnancy, my husband lived abroad in Nigeria, and at the time of birth, he was there, but had to leave shortly after our daughter was born. And so it became even more important that I had that time to not just bond with Amara, but also figure out motherhood. It was my first time. I decided I wanted to exclusively breastfeed, a choice that I didn't realize was really a very difficult one, but really eventually was able to do it. Now, in my role as a pediatrician, I've seen countless patients either benefit or suffer from having paid leave or having leave at all or not. I've had patients whose moms and dads have had to go back to work after barely 2 weeks of having a child for fear of not having resources required or just for not having that time to go back. And we need to realize that the importance of family bonding, especially and how important it is in a child's early years, months, and even days. Now, I can't forget a patient of mine a patient's mom who I'd seen, and with her first child, she had barely time for maternal leave. But with her second child, she was able to get 14 weeks off. And not only did she get 14 weeks off, her husband got 14 weeks of paid parental leave. I remember her saying to me, Dr. O, I can't tell you what a difference this makes. I'm able to relax. I can actually breastfeed. I can actually get work done and not feel the pressure to go back while knowing that her job was secure. Again, I can recall or recount several stories or several anecdotes of how important paid leave is to not just the child, the infant who has just been brought into the world, but to the parents, the economy, the society, and the world at large. And so I urge you to really strongly consider this act and really strong, like I said, really strongly consider this and make paid parental leave a reality in our state. Thank you.
Josie, yay for the technology cooperating that time so we could get the doctor's message out there. That's awesome. And next we have Mary Onifer, who is A retired professor now working as a senior account executive at Standing Firm, a national program of the Women's Center and Shelter of Greater Pittsburgh. In her role as a consultant and trainer, Mary works one on one with organizations to help leadership understand the important role they can play in creating a safe workplace and a supportive culture at work for survivor of partner violence.
Thank you so much, Eric. Hopefully my video is now working.
It is.
Thank you. Good. Thank you so much. So I'm going to kind of tailor what I had to say, cut it down a little bit so we still have time for Dan and Eric to talk to you. But today I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak with you, and thank you for being with us. And also thank you to the folks who've come before me and have told these wonderfully moving stories about their own life. I started crying when the music started, and I haven't stopped since, so my apologies. I'm a retired business and information systems professor, as Eric said. I now work with Standing Firm, and Standing Firm is a national program of the Women's Center and Shelter of Greater Pittsburgh, which is actually marking its 50th anniversary this year. But Standing Firm was founded 15 years ago on the belief that partner violence does affect employees and the workplace. And every day we work to mentor and train workplaces to become safe and supportive environments for survivors of domestic or partner violence. I have to tell you that when I joined Standing Firm and I started working in the community, I was really astounded at the pervasiveness and the rate of occurrence of abuse in our communities. And so today I just wanted to share quickly with you some things that I've learned about why paid family leave that includes survivors, or what this term safe leave, is important to both business and individuals. And I first would like to say that partner violence can affect anyone. 1 in 3 women, 1 in 4 men report that they've experienced some type of partner abuse in their lifetime. When we start looking at the LGBTQ community, LGBTQ plus community, and disabilities communities, those numbers actually rise to about 50%. And we know that domestic violence disproportionately affects members of our historically economic disadvantaged communities, including women of color, due to increased risk factors like gender and income, wealth gaps, housing, and food insufficiency. But in the state of Pennsylvania, PCADV reports that 21% of workers report experiencing partner violence in their lifetime. That's almost 1/5 of our workforce in Pennsylvania. Employees may experience abuse in multiple ways. We don't have a survivor here to talk with you today, so I'm just going to try to kind of talk through a little bit about what their experience and the challenges that they face. But they might face abuse in multiple ways, so it's not only physical or sexual, but it can also be psychological, spiritual, financial, and it can be interference with their ability to work. In fact, 76% of survivors report that the abuse that they are experiencing interferes with their ability to work, which makes sense because they live in fear and worry for themselves, for the safety of their families. How are they going to get out? It's a terrible personal burden that they carry with them into the workplace. 25 to 50% of those experience job loss. And thinking about someone who doesn't disclose, most times they don't disclose in the workforce. Someone doesn't disclose. Their work product they might be showing up late, and pretty soon they get put onto a work improvement plan that doesn't improve, and they lose their job. And so, when we think about that and the long-term effects that has on everyone, that really is something that lasts them all the way to their retirement and all the way through their life, financially and in other ways. And I have to ask the question: can Pennsylvania, if we're going to be a strong, progressive, and competitive business environment, can we really afford to lose that amount of workers from our workforce? Those numbers that I've talked about sort of have a broader implication across the United States, where I have to look at this number because it's so large. It's 137.8 billion in short-term productivity is lost due to gender-based violence and harassment across the United States. Survivors tell me that sometimes the workplace is the only safe place they have. It is a place where they can build self-esteem, they can have some independence and feel like they are protected from the violence or the abuse that they might suffer in their own homes. But as I said before, employees may not disclose in fear of being judged or discriminated against. They don't want to be that victim. They don't want to be seen as the person who is a victim of domestic violence. And they don't want that to be considered whenever they might be going for a different job responsibilities, or there's an opportunity for advancement in the company. And some of us might say, why don't they leave? And, what survivors have told me that it's very complicated. It's a complicated answer, and it's tied up in a lot of emotion and relationships, family, children, housing, transportation. And what we do know is that lacking financial resources is the number one reason why a victim will stay or return to an abusive relation or decide whether or not to seek protection orders. On average, it takes 7 attempts to leave, and leaving is the most dangerous time for a survivor. And they have to have a plan in place that includes financial independence. It's the only way they can maintain their independence away from that relationship. And so, what I can say to you today is that paid family leave, or in the form of safe leave, will provide those 21% of employed survivors that we talked about earlier the support that they need to heal and rebuild their lives and families, just like some of the families have talked about today. It's very challenging at the moment when they're going through it. It's very challenging, but we have an opportunity to provide a really key ingredient to their being able to leave the situation and stay and become independent, to realize their full potential, to heal their families, and to be contributing members of our society. This is a very short and brief little presentation today. I will put my email in the chat. If you have any questions for me, I would be happy to talk to you about how paid family leave or safe leave for victims of domestic violence is a really important piece of this legislation moving forward. Thank you again to everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Next we have Dan O'Brien, who is the policy manager focused on education and family stability. Dan is a resident of Bucks County, formerly a teacher, and now he spends a lot of his time working around paid family, medical, and safe leave. So welcome, Dan, to talk a little bit about how the Family Care Act is a political win for everyone.
Thank you, Everett, and thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We just heard a lot of people and a lot of stories talk about why this is obviously the right thing to do. Not only have workers in Pennsylvania needed this, they've earned it. And this legislation is something that they are going to pay into, and they would receive the benefits from something that they have worked for in order to get those benefits that they would need at the most vulnerable time of their lives or their families' lives. What I'm going to focus on is why it actually just makes sense for politicians and lawmakers in Harrisburg to pass a paid family and medical leave program. This has long been an issue that is looked at as a partisan issue, which is just not true. What polling has shown in battleground states across the country, including Pennsylvania, is that both Democrats and Republicans, along with independents, believe that there should be a statewide paid family and medical leave program. Voters view this as both a pro-family and pro-business issue. And I'm not talking about 51%. It's over 75%, no matter what their party is, views this as an issue that they want to see done in Pennsylvania. At a time when female voters across the state have showed that if you do not support issues that back them to stay in the workforce and to raise their families along with other working parents, you are not going to get elected. And so what we have seen is, due to the strong support of issues like paid family and medical leave, in states where politicians and elected officials have run on passing and getting a paid family medical leave bill done, they have not only won, but they have expanded their majorities. So this is not only an issue that is the right thing to do, it is smart politically because this is what the voters want. The one thing that was touched upon as well is this is a pro-family issue, but it's also a pro-business issue. And what we have seen is in states that have existing laws, not only does this benefit employees, this benefits employers, and especially small and medium-sized businesses that cannot necessarily afford to offer this on their own. So one of our messages that we have clearly hit hard with lawmakers in Harrisburg, including this week, our coalition was there this week talking to both sides of the aisle, is why this is good for them, but also for small businesses within their communities, because it has saved them on retention and recruitment costs, it has increased productivity in those states. And in the House bill, which has a split between the employee and the employer payment, there is actually an exemption for small businesses. So this would not cost, whether it's the House bill or the Senate version of the bill, businesses smaller than 15 employees, anything, but they would receive the benefits of saving on retention and recruitment. So I just want to hit hard at the end. Not only is this thing the right thing to do, but passing a paid family and medical leave program in Pennsylvania is the smart thing to do for our leaders in Harrisburg. And I just want to thank leadership on both sides of the aisle, because we really have had strong support on both the Republican and Democratic side in each the House and the Senate, that this is something that they want to get done, but they want to make sure it's the right program. And that's why we've been trying to talk to small businesses and other folks who are interested in this, but want to make sure that it's right for them as well. So I just want to thank you for your time, and thanks again for coming. And we look forward to continuing this fight and this journey with you. So I hope you can join us.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Amen. Next, I'm going to introduce Eric Kratz. Eric currently serves as the executive director of the Senate Labor and Industry Committee for Senator Devlin Robinson. He previously served in the same role for Senator Camara Bartolotta and Senator Kim Ward, and when they served as chairs of the same committee. Prior to joining the Senate, Kratz worked for the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry as a policy director and director of grants and planning for the Pennsylvania Workforce Development Board. Welcome, Mr. Kratz.
Thanks very much for having me today, Everett, and thank you all for joining this webinar. Senator Robinson is very pleased to be working on paid leave legislation here in the Senate in a bipartisan manner with Senator Maria Collette. The Senate bill will be the session. It has not been referred to committee yet, but it will be Senate Bill 580, which is the same bill number that it's been in prior sessions. So it'll be hopefully easy to remember. The bill that we're going to be introducing in the Senate, or will be referred very soon in the Senate, is quite similar to the House bill. We've been working with our House colleagues to try to generally align the language, although there are some differences. But we all are very happy that both of the bills do include additional language this session from prior sessions that does provide for safe leave for victims of violence, to include the domestic violence situations like Mary talked about, and also individuals with disabilities who are victims of abuse, neglect, or exploitation. And I really want to thank advocates like Mary and Josie and others who have been instrumental in helping us, get educated and aware about some of these issues, and in helping us craft language to try to address those situations within the bill. So as I mentioned, the Senate bill was, there's a process that we have to go through to get a bill introduced and referred, and we have started that process. So it has been submitted to the President Pro Tem's office for referral. We hope that it gets referred to committee soon. They have a time frame in which they must do so, so it should be any day now at this point. And from there, Senator Robinson and I look forward to continuing to work with stakeholders and advocates as we kind of work through the potential of either a hearing potentially this spring, or perhaps a committee vote, or maybe both. But we really appreciate, again, the feedback we've received and the support we've received from the advocates, and he is enthusiastic about this bill and trying to continue to move it forward. As Representative Miller mentioned in his comments earlier, it is a substantial bill and a substantial program and an important program. But with that, we want to make sure we're deliberate in how we do that and make sure that we're doing it in a feasible and good, positive way. But we look forward to working with all of you to continue to move this forward. And again, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. And Josie, I'm going to turn it over to you to wrap up our festivities today.
Festivities. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of our speakers. Whether you're a legislator or a staffer or an advocate, we ask you to take action. Now is the time. If this bill doesn't get passed by the end of December, we have to start all over. A lot of families don't have that time to wait. As we close out today, I am going to show a video that's pulled together and about the Family Care Act, and I'm hoping to release it officially soon, but share it. Share information. There have been a ton of one-pagers, documents that have been put in the chat. Share those and really consider your role in helping families, workers, and businesses in Pennsylvania.
Have you ever found yourself wrestling with the realities of caring for a loved one, but without the necessary financial support? The struggle can be overwhelming. But what if we told you there's a solution that not only provides financial security, but also offers flexibility for families? Enter the Family Care Act. The Family Care Act, a pioneering legislation in Pennsylvania, is more than just another law. It's a beacon of hope for families grappling with the challenges of caring for elderly loved ones, recovering children, or even themselves after a major surgery. It's a safety net for those welcoming newborns or adopted children into their lives. So what makes the Family Care Act so special? Firstly, it establishes a paid family medical leave insurance fund. This fund is not just a financial lifeline. It's a lifeboat that keeps families together during tough times. It reduces the burden on families, helping them focus more on care and recovery, rather than worrying about bills and expenses. The Family Care Act is also a champion for reducing nursing home costs. It ensures that your elderly loved ones can receive the care they need in the comfort of their own homes. The Act recognizes that home is where the heart is, and it strives to keep it that way. But the benefits of the Family Care Act don't stop there. It extends its helping hand to support small businesses too. By providing financial security to employees during their time of need, it promotes employee retention and reduces turnover. It's a win-win for both employers and employees. Last but definitely not least is the Act's role in strengthening the middle class. By providing a safety net for families during difficult times, the Family Care Act promotes economic stability and well-being. It's a testament to the fact that when families are strong, communities are strong, and when communities are strong, the nation is strong. In summary, the Family Care Act is a comprehensive solution designed to provide financial security and flexibility for families. It's about keeping families together, supporting small businesses, and strengthening the middle class. It's about promoting economic stability and overall well-being. It's about acknowledging that love is care, and care sometimes needs support. It's about time we embrace the Family Care Act for a better, stronger, and more caring Pennsylvania. The Family Care Act is good for families, good for business, good for Pennsylvania.